We got one more series left today. It is Super Frogs against Never Lucky. Never Lucky needing to go on one of these long and tiring runs through the lower side of the bracket. They do have momentum in their favor. Fatigue shouldn't be a problem as of yet, but my goodness, they had to play a lot and against some really tough competition. You can even see people right now, if you follow any of the players on Twitter, talking about how incredible Never Lucky really does look. The move, a very strong team. Obviously, they make it all the way to the grand finals at BlizzCon last year, where they got second place, but Never Lucky just keeps getting better and better and better, and now they need to get a lot done. Zico, I think we should tell everybody what we were kind of figuring out over break, and that is what possible permutations you could have and how Never Lucky could be that number 4 team, or how the Mew Mew Kitty Cats could do just that.
Okay, so Mew Mew Kitty Cats, they need to be 2 placings above Never Lucky to be guaranteed qualified without a tiebreaker. If they are only 1 placing ahead, it's a tiebreaker. Or if Never Lucky places ahead, they go to the land qualified. So right now we got Mew Mew Kitty Cats versus the boys in the upper. If Mew Mew Kitty Cat loses, they will be knocked down to face whoever wins here. Now let's say Super Frogs. I'm gonna go ahead and say Super Frogs probably gonna win this game. At least that's where I would bet.
That's the prediction, sure.
That's my prediction. So let's go with that. Super Frogs beats Never Lucky here. That means Never Lucky gets 4th. Mew Mew Kitty Cat loses to the boys and loses to the Frogs. That's a tiebreaker. Mew Mew Kitty Cat loses to the boys but beats the Frogs, then Mew Mew Kitty Cats is auto-qualified. So those are the most likely scenarios that we have to look out for. And in case there is a tiebreaker, that's going to be played on Championship Sunday after the finals.
Now, where it gets even more saucy is it's a rematch, right? If we do see Mew Mew Kitty Cats get knocked down, and we already know how that one went. So you can start to make these predictions, but it is there's a high chance of a tiebreaker. There really is a high chance of a tiebreaker, or the Mew Mew Kitty Cats. You have to favor them. Never Lucky going to need to take a very difficult series here to change that. There's only room for one of these teams at LAN. And now let's actually talk about how these 2 squads match up. What does Never Lucky need to do, in your opinion, to win this? You already said that you think the Super Frogs will win. Yeah,
I think... honestly, I don't know what Never Lucky can do here, because the comps that they've been practicing has mainly been cleaves with different healers, and I don't think that that's going to be enough to take down a team like Super Frogs. Super Frogs being able to take down Method Orange, being able to take down a lot of these really dominant cleave teams. It's going to be rough, because they have to go up against that Mage-Lock Druid we saw earlier, which is basically specialized in dealing with these cleaves, and the first game is going to be played on a large map, Nagrand Arena. So if they can win the blind pick, that's going to be a good sign for them, because then all of a sudden we know that they have an answer for the Mage-Lock Druid. So it's going to be rough. Never Lucky, if they win this, Mew Mew Kitty Cats needs to make it to the final to actually stand a chance at going to the land still.
Exactly, yeah.
That tiebreaker.
Mage-Lock Druid, Super Tease, do you feel like that is the main composition that we do need to be thinking about for the Super Frogs?
I think so. They would not be wanting to play the Rogue Warlock after the recent changes, I don't believe. Although the team of Never Lucky, they've got a 4th member, even though we really haven't seen him in a long time, that being Pack Rats on the Destruction Warlock. So potentially they have a Destruction Warlock composition of their own to try and bring onto the table. I think it's unlikely. I expect a similar strategy as we saw Method Orange try and employ, maybe with a Mistweaver instead of a Shaman. Never Lucky will just try and avoid the fight and go for a big push deep into dampening with the Way of the Crane. And we've seen that strategy work against Destruction Warlocks in the past, and it looks like we're gonna get that matchup. Can Never Lucky do it? They're most certainly the most improved team overall. I think between Europe and North America, Never Lucky's the most improved team. They're just 4 friends that came together on a roster at the start of the spring season, looked kind of shaky, but were at least consistent, kept themselves together mentally. They didn't break apart or get frustrated with each other. They just kept it together, worked on their play, and despite being maybe behind in skill to the other teams, improved massively, and now are almost qualified. They're just a few steps away.
It's one of those teams that it is enjoyable to watch their road. It is enjoyable to watch their road throughout the entirety of the tournament, because I think a lot of people knew what their potential was, knew that they could actually answer a lot of these top teams. They were able to figure out the code quite a few times. They knew the right answer. It all came down to execution. They've had some bad games as well, like really bad games, really bad series. Then they come out the next week. They're able to beat that team. And they just keep going back to the drawing board, keep improving. Never Lucky is going to face their toughest competition, though, here in the Super Frogs.
Yeah, Super Frogs, the #1 point earners in North America right now. And this is a matchup I'd have to put in favor of the Super Frogs. It's really difficult for the Windwalker Death Knight to get any sort of pressure rolling. You can see Wealthy Man getting bounced against the wall with that Ring of Peace, and maybe if Zach and Colo, they can land these consistent Ring of Peace to deny movement with 2 Rings of Peace or either a Ring of Peace into the wall, that might be something they look to do in this matchup. But Super Frogs so far, the only teams they've really struggled with in these tournaments are teams that are really good at Rogue Mage. Rogue Mage seems to be the one thing that Super Frogs has a difficult time with. That's why they lost to Mew Mew Kitty Cats, but Never Lucky, they don't have those compositions.
Chanimal running the Demonic Circle again. This was a talent decision that he made in previous tournaments as well to deal with the Windwalker Death Knights. Although in this current position, he's right next to the Demonic Circle, that green circle next to the pillar, so Chanimal needs to reposition away from it if he wants to maximize its usage. Now trying to drag Valido and Zach into midfield to potentially expose Colo. Valido could be a playmaker as well, running that Dark... I believe he stole his Polymorph with the Dark Simulacrum. So Valido has a Polymorph that he can now use potentially on Cubsy. Grips Cubsy into a stun, but because Cubsy's in bear form, Valido cannot use that Polymorph just yet. He's waiting for him to come out. They use the Paralysis. They could chain it together into a Polymorph, but it's not going to be super effective, unfortunately. That Dark Simulacrum not going to be too valuable for Valido early on. Mana even at this point. Zach gets Gladiator's Maledict committed towards him. Diffuse Magic removes that immediately. Valido then gets swapped to, and this is the main strategy for the Super Frogs. Attack the Windwalker, scare him away, switch targets to the Death Knight, try and burst him down, and deeper in dampening, the Death Knight just simply can't escape, and that's the main win condition. The only X factor really is Colo's Way of the Crane and Valido's Dark Simulacrum, which has stolen a Polymorph in this current situation, but Cubsy knew it was stolen and activated the defensive cooldown before the crowd control was initiated. That damage reduction cooldown soaked up all of the hits, allowed Cubsy to sit through the crowd control, but not entirely comfortably. Chanimal is still very low on health. Is just going to go down. Unending Resolve has to be exchanged as well. Huge swing for Never Lucky early on against the Super Frogs.
Yeah, Chanimal just not creating the distance we've seen him need in the past to survive against a Windwalker Death Knight setup such as this. Now in the blink of an eye, Chanimal, no Trinket, no Unending Resolve, not a lot of defensive cooldowns left for the team of the Super Frogs. Cubsy was looking to get aggressive, but he got Polymorphed by Valido, by that Dark Simulacrum, into a Paralysis from Colo, into a leg sweep, and if we can see Never Lucky sneak in these crowd controls, if Valido can take a Polymorph from Wealthy Man, or he can take a Fear from Chanimal. That's the extended crowd control chain that can be paired with Colo's Paralysis and Leg Sweep to really start allowing them to start generating a lot of pressure in this matchup. So Chanimal and Wealthy Man, they're going to have to be very careful with what they're giving Valido.
Qualifications on the line here for Never Lucky. Can they stay in the tournament? They're maintaining their mana well here, which was a criticism that I have given Colo in past cups. Although now it seems like they have a lot more mastery of this composition, are now able to extend the game into dampening, which is likely to be required for them. Cubsy with Thorns activated is trying to set his team up for some huge potential. Valido sees it, and anti-magic shields absorbing the hits, denying the kill. Colo now free from crowd control. I'm really curious to see when Colo decides to make a maneuver with that Way of the Crane. He obviously wants to maintain his mana as long as possible, so potentially using Way of the Crane before dampening isn't high value. It's not a guaranteed kill, so he would rather just hold on to the mana later into the fight. Although in this window of opportunity, no one in resolve for another minute and 30 seconds, you would normally expect this to be an opportunity for Colo to make a push. Colo gets seduced by Chanimal, pinned down in midfield. Unfortunately breaks to some damage, but they do get a Polymorph. Good crowd control on Colo, but no damage just yet committed by the team of Super Frogs. Chanimal now activating Dark Soul, looking for a huge Chaos Bolt here shortly. Curious to see if he's actually able to get it. I really don't think he's going to be able to. Chaos Bolt casted, he fake casts, trying to fake out both Zach and Valido, but not able to. Now Colo makes the move with that Way of the Crane. This was the opening with no Unending Resolve. Chanimal with great precision on that kiting. Demonic circles back, and then uses the Demonic Gateway to get to safety, buying time for Wealthy Man to control Colo. Now with Colo in crowd control, Zach could be in trouble. He has to use Diffuse Magic, removes the Gladiator's Maledict, and reduces a ton of magic damage on himself, long enough for Colo to leave crowd control and then exchange Life Cocoon. However, this was not the Infernals of Chanimal. This is not the Icy Veins of Wealthy Man. Those are some pretty powerful spells that we could see activated shortly to punish that preemptive life cocoon. Counterspell secured. Could be an opening for Super Frogs if they can get anything off the back of it. Doesn't look like they can just yet, though.
And Zach trades out his Touch of Karma to avoid that big Chaos Bolt Chanimal had ready for him. Dampening is rampanting at 5% at this point in the game. What is Cubsy going to be able to do? So far, he hasn't been able to sneak away for drinks, which is what we normally see. Although, you can see Chanimal, he is using the Succubus, getting a Seduce onto Colo. That gets interrupted by a beautiful Ring of Peace from Zach. And Zach, to his credit, has been doing a great job playing backup for Colo in this game, interrupting all the Seduce cast from that Succubus with the Paralysis, with his Spear Hand Strike, with his Ring of Peace. And I think if Zach and Valido can be on point and deny that extra crowd control Chanimal really has available, Colo can continue to keep them up for an extended period of time.
He will be able to keep him up for an extended period of time. Cubsy now tapped on mana and likely to need a drink here soon, but with that ghoul hammering away at his backside, it is unlikely that he will find that opportunity to sit down and regenerate mana, which means Neverlucky have a huge win condition with Colo having so much mana in the tank. Perhaps this Destruction Warlock Mage composition will be thwarted. Perhaps Neverlucky's improvements over time will be enough for them to overcome the top point earner in North America overall. Perhaps this is Neverlucky's time to rise, their opportunity to rise to power, as Rich Campbell predicted earlier on, and who would have guessed it? Rich might actually be right.
I don't know, there's one team called the Super Frogs standing in their way, standing in Rich's predictions way as well, and I don't know, Super Frogs are still looking good, but Cubsy with no mana is not looking that great. We're at 14% dampening. Colo's been doing an excellent job so far. Like we talked about, Neverlucky potentially the most improved team here in North America, potentially the world this year, and you can tell how much they want it. They have a well-calculated plan. They're executing it quite beautifully in this matchup so far. Chanimal, although he has his Unending Resolve, back up, like we kind of mentioned. If they can get another beautiful setup off the back of Valido getting a Dark Simulacrum, they can all-in Chanimal and take him down quite easily.
All right, let's see if they can accomplish that objective. They've got Iron Bark out of the way. They're pressuring for Unending Resolve. If they can get that before Way of the Crane, it'll be pivotal, but they're not finding it. Cubsy connects a huge heal. Chanimal stabilizes. Zach now needs to be careful. Does not have much defense to work with, and he's in midfield facing Chanimal. Chanimal then Demonic Circles away, trying to kite and avoid, drag Zach out of position. Colo in midfield, gets seduced. Could be trouble for Zach. Catches a couple of Vivifies around the corner. Wealthy Man can't get there just in time, trying to get in line of sight. Blizzard will pin Zach down at the corner for Chanimal and Wealthy Man. Colo stuck in midfield and crowd controlled for so long, now bashed. Zach tries to make a move, but it might be too premature. Huge hits from Wealthy Man. Life Cocoon gets crushed through by Chanimal. Zach retreats around the corner once again. Colo tries to get to his aid, but feared off to the distance. Zach manages to recover. Good crowd control like that has bought Cubsy time, though, to drink and regenerate mana. Suddenly, it's still anyone's match.
Oh, it definitely is. 23% dampening, like we said, at 40% dampening, roughly that number, that's when Valido becomes such an exposed target in midfield against a composition like the Destruction Warlock and the Frost Mage. Neverlucky is holding it together. Chanimal getting low, good pressure here. Asphyxiate stun onto Cubsy. And you can see Colo moves in as well, gets the leg sweep onto Chanimal, looking to get aggressive. All three members looking for a push. Chanimal denies the kill for now with the Unending Resolve, but without that major offensive defensive cooldown, Chanimal is very exposed in this situation. You won't have that available for another 3 minutes. 26% dampening. Do you really ever see him getting that back up?
Unlikely, but they've got a window. There's no Unending Resolve for 3 minutes. That's a huge window. Chanimal might just get destroyed. Demonic Circle, but he Demonic Circles right on top of Colo. All right, now gets seduced away, not able to do too much damage. Zach needs to retreat. He's very low on health and does not want to use Diffuse Magic before a Gladiator's Maledict attack, but now he's bashed. If Wealthy Man can connect any damage here, he's got Ray of Frost. The Life Cocoon of Colo denies the kill for now. Chanimal still an exposed target. Mana totally even. It's anyone's match at this point. Valido, once again, with that Dark Simulacrum, could be the X factor. Trying to steal something. What does Valido manage to steal is now going to be the question. Chanimal Demonic Circles, expecting a Polymorph on Cubsy. Cubsy expects it as well. It activates Iron Bark, but it's premature. This could be an opening. If Colo just goes for the Way of the Crane, they could just knock Chanimal down here in game number 1. Nice. Bring a piece on Chanimal. I want to see another one, but Zach is still low on health. Huge flurry. Wealthy Man just KOs him in game number 1. Super Frogs continue to assert dominance in the North American region.
That was just a beautiful setup there by Wealthy Man, really setting up the crowd control, setting up the burst damage, and punishing Zach for getting a little bit too overly aggressive on channel.
I think that ultimately, when we are watching this, though, they played it a lot closer than we thought that they initially were going to, Zico.
Yeah, it looked a lot closer than Method Orange's game. I know Method Orange were playing the Demon Hunter, but still they did have the Windwalker option available as well. And that's a lot of the pressure that the Windwalker is able to dish out. You can actually force out the Unending Resolve with those hidden runs. And here, Zach just kind of goes for that big burst setup. But honestly, Colo should just wave the crane here. This is an easy wave of the crane. Instead, Wealthy Man goes in, dishes out a whole bunch of damage. If Colo actually aggressed there with his team, because he was free, I think that maybe they could have even pushed Chanimal over, or at the very least kept Zach going offensive there with the touch of death, and could have looked differently. So matchup definitely looks a lot closer than what we predicted.
I definitely think that that's the case, that it does look closer. Do you think that this is just the matchup that we see all the way through, Sid?
Likely, unless Never Lucky feels that there's just no hope, and then maybe we see Pack Rats brought in. We could see maybe Windwalker destruction. I don't know if that would work, but at this point, what will work for them?
No.
What is that mannerism?
Not going to happen.
Not gonna happen. Okay.
Dunzo.
Scratch it.
That's a note from you then. I mean, ultimately, I'm already surprised by it. You know, Sid brings up the fact that I predicted that Never Lucky was going to be that 4th team to make it. I did. I didn't think that they were going to have to go through this bracket. Like, this is a very difficult matchup for them, and if they bow out here, it's looking more and more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most difficult team, in my opinion, they could go against. Super Frogs hasn't really been losing to anything so far in these tournaments, except really Rogue Mage, and that's the only thing they've really struggled with, but they have a Rogue Mage of their own. So Super Frogs might be making a look that adaptation a little bit later on in the tournament if they have to go up against Mew Mew Kitty Cats, but I don't know. I really feel like they have Never Lucky figured out so far in this matchup, although I have to say Never Lucky did play it out a lot better than I really would have expected so far. Their Windwalker Death Knight Mistweaver seems to make it the most difficult for Super Frogs to actually land a kill, and they seem to have good consistent offense in the game. There's one moment in the game where Chanimal actually lived at like 5% health. It was a really close call. An extra critical strike from a Rising Sun kick could have easily been the game.
What is Never Lucky doing, in your opinion, Zico, that's making them look so good in this particular tournament?
They just adapt a lot. I mean, they're playing the good comps in the meta, and they're not afraid to switch it up. They're not afraid to have Zach play the Demon Hunter, be a healer, have Colo on the Windwalker, have Zach on the Windwalker. And the problem for them, earlier at least, has been the execution. They've been doing some, you know, pretty significant mistakes in terms of just their mechanics on all of these new classes that they're picking up. But now that they've kind of shied away from playing things like the Warrior and just all these kind of weird comps that we saw from them, and just specialized into the things that are working, they look a lot better at it. I mean, one of our big criticisms, 2 weeks ago for Zach was his portals weren't that great on point. He wasn't playing defensively necessarily as great as he could be. That's strange.
Definitely strange. Let's talk about why it's strange and then try to figure out maybe why they are picking it. So Never Lucky coming off the loss, just in case you aren't sure how the format does work for our tournaments, because they just came off the loss, they're going to lock in the map. Then Super Frogs, who just won, they're going to lock in their composition. And then Never Lucky, when they lock in their composition, they're going to have full information. They're going to see what Super Frogs lock in, and they're able to counter comp. They're able to pick a composition that can potentially beat Super Frogs, at least on paper, and then they get down to the arena that they chose and try to grab that win. Now, why go for a large map?
This is 100% the takeaway, but Super Frogs are going to play Mage Lock Druid, most likely. What's your counter, dude?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Because if I could figure out Super Frogs were going to play Mage Lock Druid in game number 1, I would have loved to see that counter already in game number 1. So if your counter is the same comp as we saw in game number 1, why are you picking the largest map in the pool? They're going to pick it anyway, so it's not really a takeaway if you pick it and then you just lose on it and you play the same matchup that they wanted anyway. So I'm interested to see what Neverlucky are going to be picking. Maybe Sid is right. Maybe we'll see a Destro Warlock from Pack Rats. But what is it going to be paired with? Is it going to be a DK?
Valido actually plays Elemental Shaman.
Potentially.
So, but I think
What, are we going to see Cola Hots then?
So I do want to bring up. I want to bring up what Zico was saying. The thing is Super Frogs don't expect anything else out of Neverlucky. There's no reason that they should be expecting anything else out of Neverlucky. So they are going to pick into it. Any other play would be a misplay from Super Frogs, a low percentage play. So we knew we were going to see this composition from them in the blind. So if Neverlucky does have an answer, they should have used in game 1. Game 1's going to be more important than game 2. It is. That's how you get the advantage in game 5, unless you throw in game number 3. But if Neverlucky had a direct counter comp, we should have already seen it. Anything that they do in play here, the question is, why didn't they use it in game 1? Was it a lack of confidence, maybe? There are a lot of things that could be asked. Let's try to figure out what it is. Let's go over a takeaway, though, for anybody who doesn't know what that is. Zico's been talking about it a little bit. How do takeaways actually work? When you lock in a map that is very good for one team and you try to take it away from them, what do you usually do?
I mean, this isn't a situation where it's a takeaway. I mean, if you're going to lose on your takeaway, then that's the best result that Super Frogs could have asked for anyways. When they go to Tolvaron, they want to win. If they're winning on Tolvaron, then Neverlucky really isn't accomplishing anything.
That's a throwaway. But let's talk about how a takeaway does actually work, just in case we do see one a little bit later on in this tournament. Tomorrow is going to be the last day of Cup number 6, the final Cup of this season before we head to the biggest tournament of the season. There we go. They do have an answer, and this is something that really haven't expected. This Zach going back to Holy Paladin.
I actually don't even think this is a good matchup.
Why Paladin?
What is the Paladin doing in this comp?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Because I certainly don't know. Why do you think I would make this decision? The thing with Neverlucky here is they're at least doing it their way. I think they're back to the Neverlucky that we saw at the beginning of the season.
Why didn't they do it in game number 1? If all of us knew that they're going to be picking Mage Lock Druid, that's what Super Frogs has been locking in on the blind pretty much against everybody who plays Cleaves for the last, couple of weeks. Why didn't they do it on the blind? Were they scared that they were going to go against the Roguelock Druid? They were going to blind pick Roguelock Druid into a team that's been playing mainly Cleaves after Warlocks got nerfed? I don't see, I don't think it's very likely. So, why are they doing it on the worst map?
So here's the only reason that they would be doing it here in the second game and not the first game. They didn't want to do it. They felt confident in the matchup. Now that they actually played out the matchups, they said, okay, let's bring this out. Let's try it in game number 2 when we have some stuff in our favor and see if it works. I think that's basically what happened. I don't think that they intended. I don't think this is the game plan. I think they're trying to adapt at this moment.
Well, I don't even think this is one of those maps where it's in their favor. Like going to a large map, I think Channel and Wealthy Man, Frost Mages actually do a considerable amount of damage, especially with the build that Wealthy Man's playing, the Lonely Winter, really stacking every one of his talents into sort of a Frostbolt all-in. It actually does decent damage if he's getting the Flurry procs. Then you have the control from the Frost Mage and the Destruction Warlock, and Paladins are really susceptible to that type of control. They can't really defend themselves. Pack Rats on a Moonkin, his Solar Beam is going to be a much longer cooldown than the Spell Lock and the Counter Spell that Channel and Wealthy Man have. It just feels like everything is going in favor of the Super Frogs in this matchup. In the past, you could say, Neverlucky with this composition, they're going to have a lot of rot damage, a lot of consistent damage over time effects, but that just doesn't seem to be something that's really good in this particular meta. It's much better to have burst and control than just damage on random targets.
Zico, I do want to say, though, some of the things that go in favor of this composition, this was Zach's original main, and he did look very good on it. We were even comparing him to Rubcub, right? Valido, he's played this, then did. Valido, he's played this for years. This is a strong class for him. Pack Rats, we expect to be fine on the Moonkin. So individually, everybody is somewhere where they're comfortable.
That's true. But I feel like Kolo is comfortable on the Resto Druid, and Pack Rats is comfortable on the Warlock. And the Resto Druid Warlock Elemental would be a 10 times better answer than this, because a Paladin is very susceptible to getting crowd controlled. He's very susceptible to a lot of things. Honestly, he loses the mana war, so to speak, as well against the Resto Druid. So I feel like the only thing I like about their comp is the Elemental Shaman.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will say there was one other composition today that we had a similar visceral reaction to.
That lost.
But it lost with dignity. And the thing is Never Lucky. Are they going to lose with dignity, or will they win with a surprise?
I'm sure Mew Mew Kitty Cats will be happy if they lose with dignity.
Jamili right now is just like 2 inches away from his monitor, just staring at the screen with a smile on his face, cheering.
If you win by an inch or a mile, it's still a win.
Agree with that, Sid. Small victories are the same as... I don't know anymore. There's literally an elemental shaman, Moonkin, Holy Paladin in front of my face.
I'm pretty sure Sid just quoted Vin Diesel.
Is that what that was? Yeah. Sounded familiar.
Yeah. All right, what are they going to do? Channel Wealthy Man moving in. Zach already getting damaged very early on. And for Never Lucky, I'm not sure what their game plan is. Who are they going to take down in this matchup? Cubsy's always going to be able to sit very far away. The control Wealthy Man and Channel have is going to force Packrat, Zach, and Valito to play very defensive and not be able to really pressure down the mana bar of Cubsy. You think that you're going to win in a late game in dampening?
I mean, that's their only win condition, I think, is to focus on instant cast damage and try and avoid Chaos Bolts and Frost Bolts as long as possible, and then burst somebody down with Star Surges and an Earth Shock. That's why I thought this composition on paper, but not so much so with a Paladin, would be at least acceptable. Now I think the Destruction Warlock Elemental would have been even much better. And they have that option. We've seen Packrats play Destruction in the past, and we've seen Colo, of course, play Restoration Druid in the past, and I think that may have been the best option for them overall, but they want to give this a go. If they manage to win on Tolvaron, though, at least they take one of the biggest maps out of the pool from the Super Frogs, and then have a good answer for the big maps as well to lock in blind, potentially. They swap to Cubsy with a huge swing of damage. He's now able to recover. Now Packrat on the back foot as Wealthy Man secures a polymorph over onto Zach. Although Zach seemed to have connected a huge heal to stabilize Packrats just before it. Wealthy Man now under attack. Is able to get Temporal Shield rolling and heal back to full as a result. Both teams trading evenly. Never Lucky, surprisingly, their mana is starting to establish a lead.
Yep, definitely. We'll have to see what they can get done in this matchup. The thing is, like I kind of mentioned, I feel like Cubsy is going to have an opportunity in this matchup to sneak away, go for consistent drinks, and Zach playing in this position really isn't going to be able to do the same thing. Packrats, he's already committed. It's Incarnation, a lot of his instant cast damage, and now the Moonkin threat really isn't going to be there. Valito's going to have to make sure he's getting a lot of pressure out. If Channel overextends or Wealthy Man overextends, I could see a world where Never Lucky starts generating pressure, but if they're ever in trouble, I just feel like Channel and Wealthy Man, they can pull back, get off the pillar, and they're going to have an advantage just spamming out wizard damage.
Yeah, could certainly be the case here on Tolvaron Arena, but of course Never Lucky have already seen what happens to melee cleaves running into Super Frogs. They don't do very much running. It's more like crawling and then a very slow and painful death. So it's not surprising to see Never Lucky want to try something different here on Tolvaron, although I think they could have considered potentially a better option than this. We'll still have to wait to see it play out, as Never Lucky are focused entirely on just staying alive at the pillar. Wealthy Man's got a Frozen Orb on the 3 members. Channel closes in on the left side, Wealthy Man on the right, and Zach needs to try and avoid multiple interrupts with this positioning. It could be difficult if at any moment he's counterspelled, and then they blink in for a kill. They're starting to fall behind. Valito catches a couple healing surges, but Channel moves in, and I think the Super Frogs are realizing that they're a lot more stable than they think, and they could probably stand on top of Never Lucky and get away with it. And if they can manage to do that, I'm not sure how much longer Zach will hold out.
Yeah, definitely have to see Channel tanking a lot of this incoming damage. Packrat once again going to be using that Incarnation, looking to get aggressive. Actually, it was just a mini Incarnation, so his main one will be up in 45 seconds. And that will be the added punch Never Lucky needs to start getting through some of the heals and defensives that Super Frogs has available. And I really only see Never Lucky winning this matchup with a big all-in with that Incarnation, unless it's really deep in dampening. But at that point, I feel like Zach is going to start really struggling to heal through this damage. He's going to have to start casting out a lot more heals, and that's going to make him susceptible to Wealthy Man and Channel going for those interrupts. And that's where I feel like the Holy Paladin really is a vulnerability in deep dampening. I just don't know how he's going to keep his team alive.
Dampening, a double-edged sword. It's going to benefit and disbenefit both sides as we edge closer to it. No significant mana advantage for either side at this point. Obviously, Chanimal and Wealthy Man, their team focuses more heavily on hard-casted spells, which Never Lucky can more easily avoid at the pillar. Because of this, you would say on paper that Never Lucky have the composition advantage over the Super Frogs, but if they make even one mistake and catch a quick Chaos Bolt during Infernals, then they could get just killed outright. Cubsy, running the Feral Affinity, actually could backfire on him if they can do an Incarnation all-in with the Triple Gladiator's Maledicts. I see that as a possible win condition for Never Lucky, and Cubsy will have to avoid giving that opportunity as much as possible.
Incarnation, big pressure here from Pack Rats as they're trying to take down Wealthy Man, but that gets denied instantaneously by Chanimal with the Infernal, with the Shadow Fury. Destruction Warlocks are just such a destructive force in World of Warcraft right now. They have a lot of crowd control at their disposal, and I think with the amount of crowd control they have, Chanimal, if he's able to free cast, can just easily shut down Valido and Pack Rat, force them defensive. And look at Pack Rat. He can't get any damage rolling. Just getting crowd control. Valido's just dying. Zach, what is he going to do? Trying to connect some heals. Valido backs him up with a nice wind shear. Cubsy moving in, getting a rake stun onto Valido. Wealthy Man looking for some damage. Pack Rat backs him up, but Super Frogs are just walking all over Never Lucky.
I mean, it's not looking too good for Pack Rat's Balance Druid. Absolutely zero pressure for the team of Never Lucky. They're not even denting the health bars of Super Frogs, let alone even working down the Cubsy's mana. There's really only one moment in time where the Super Frogs even need to be wary or even respect the damage that Never Lucky can dish out. That is during the Incarnation window. Finally, some damage at least on Chanimal, but a double Mortal Coil could completely disengage that situation. Zach could even be attacked here from Chanimal if he wants to. Pack Rat's just getting slapped by Wealthy Man in midfield. Zach can't connect any heals. He's caught in crowd control, and this composition is absolutely not working for Never Lucky. The chain gets dropped. No, they follow it up. One more Polymorph. They need a bash. They go for the Rake Stun instead. Nice Shadow Meld re-stealth. Doesn't seem to be like enough crowd control to take Pack Rats down. Avenging Wrath allows Zach to bounce back into the fight, but they've expended a huge amount of their defensive arsenal to recover from that moment.
Yep, and this is the kind of control I was talking about. Super Frogs are just so on point in terms of their crowd control that Never Lucky, they just don't have enough stops. They don't have enough interrupts. The Holy Paladin just doesn't provide any. You have Valido with Wind Shear and Grounding, but that's really the only threat. Solar Beam, a really long cooldown for Pack Rat to actually help shut down some of these casts. And it's just really difficult here for Never Lucky. Like I said, they need to try to find an all-in kill attempt. 52 seconds left on that Incarnation. That's going to be a moment for Pack Rats to get really aggressive. Cubsy's been able to maintain his mana quite well in this situation. You see Dark Soul available. Chanimal's going to be looking to get aggressive potentially with his next Infernals, which are up in 42 seconds. But the last time we saw Pack Rats get aggressive with the Incarnation, Chanimal, he was able to just drop out the Infernals, deny a lot of that pressure with the Shadow Fury. You can see Wealthy Man has Icy Veins rotating up as well. Just so much in favor of Super Frogs.
Yeah, it's looking better and better for them as they look to advance to match point, and then basically Never Lucky are just praying that the Mew Mew Kitty Cat lose their next two series, which is possible. It's possible, but you really don't want to leave the fate of your qualification in the hands of another team, so Never Lucky, you need to go back to the drawing board. Unfortunately for them, if they lose here, and because they lost a blind pick, if they do try the Elemental Shaman Destruction Warlock, most certainly the Super Frogs have an answer for it in their arsenal, and they'll have to battle it blind twice in a row. So things are not looking good for Never Lucky, despite their victory versus the move earlier today. It's looking more and more to be the case that Mew Mew Kitty Cats are going to be our fourth and last team qualifying for the spring finals. Valido gets bursted down, Grounding Totem barely in time to redirect some damage. Pack Rats is still just not getting any counter pressure outside of Incarnation. Everyone at full health, although Incarnation is available. Curious to see when Pack Rats decides to pull that punch. With dampening so high, he needs to get something done with it. Valido gets bursted down to half. He's in trouble. Zach is crowd controlled. Pack Rats is whittled away. 2 targets low on health, and Zach can't heal. Any more crowd control, and it's likely to close the match. Valido's really disrespecting the damage, not trading that Astral Shift, holding on to it as long as possible, managing to get away with it. Divine Favor, big heal. Wealthy Man gets bursted down. That's the Lightning Lasso combo. The Wombo combo from Never Lucky. does not get them an ice block at 30% dampening, and they continue to fall behind.
Yeah, as soon as Pack Rats uses that Incarnation, Chanimal immediately counter pressures with the Infernals. And now Pack Rats, you can see he's having to play defensive. He's using Travel Form, kiting away, not really able to min-max his damage. So Never Lucky, they have 1 or 2 globals with Incarnation where they can try to get some damage rolling. Other than that, Pack Rats just forced so defensive. Wealthy Man, Chanimal exclusively using their interrupts onto Pack Rat, really denying his ability to throw out Star Surges. Now Chanimal moving forward, landing a Chaos Bolt. Valido grounds it, but I just don't know what the game plan is for Never Lucky. Like, I can't help but feel they just like decided this composition would work well into Super Frogs without too much thought into it, because this is not working out at all.
They're basically going to have to hope that the Super Frogs make a mistake on the next Lightning.
And maybe they do. Wealthy Man's actually taking pressure.
It's not available, though, for another 3 minutes. And 3 minutes from now, I'm bad at math here. That's a lot of math. It's likely around 50% dampening. At least Zach has mana to make it that far, but that's going to be so tough. I'm wondering maybe at 50% dampening, the Boomkin's damage then becomes more relevant outside of Incarnation, and then perhaps they can develop some momentum. It's possible. They're going to have to navigate through the icy veins of Wealthy Man, though, and Cubsy can just chill and drink 80 yards away whenever he wants because they're totally pinned down, so there won't be any mana advantage. It's going to have to be nothing but pressure for the team of Never Lucky to find a kill. Perfect coordination and, honestly, mistakes from the Super Frogs, I think, for Never Lucky to find victory here on game number 2. Likely they will have to go back to the composition drawing board and think of a better answer if they want to stay alive in the tournament and keep their hopes and dreams of going to the spring final still in it here today.
Yeah, Wealthy Man moving forward, gets caught into a Lightning Lasso. Cubsy denies it with the Iron Bark. Now Hammer of Justice attempt onto Cubsy. What are they going to get done? Wealthy Man full health. Now he uses the Icy Veins, looking to get hyper aggressive. Drops the Frozen Orb, 40% dampening. What is that going to do? Blizzard gets cast out. Chanimal moving forward with Wealthy Man. They're trying to generate some pressure, but Valido actually getting a lot of damage out on Wealthy Man. Elemental Shamans, they can burst you down relatively quickly. Valido and Pack Rats can line up their burst. They could just blow someone out of the water very quickly in this matchup. If you look at mana, Zach hasn't had to drink at all. His mana is doing quite well. Cubsy has snuck away a few times, but he's looking healthy also. Wealthy Man having to run away. Like I kind of talked about, Wealthy Man, Safeguard proc, still a lot of pressure, playing it out greedy, not using his Ice Block, but this is what I'm talking about. Wealthy Man and Chanimal, when they're in trouble, they just run into midfield. And then all of a sudden, Chanimal, Wealthy Man with their casted damage can really overwhelm Valido and Pack Rats.
Curious to see what Pack Rats can get done. They've made it to that Incarnation, but they're on the back foot, and they need to recover before they can go for it. Cubsy, he is likely, you have to go after Cubsy with the Lightning Lasso. They just need to all-in Cubsy, try and burst him down with the Feral Affinity. I don't see anyone else going down unless they make a mistake with Nether Ward and Ice Block. Those can just immediately deny all damage from the team of Never Lucky. Whereas Cubsy, I think, could die through Barkskin and through his Glidier's Medallion this deep into dampening. Although if he never compromises his positioning and stays as far away as he is, that just simply isn't an option because Never Lucky will have to go too far into the map to be able to find a kill at that point. So we are starting to see the pressure mount for the Super Frogs at 50% dampening. Zach is holding out onto a lot of defensive cooldowns, maybe an ultimate sacrifice, big push, trying to overwhelm while you are immune to damage and redirecting it. This could be potential. Pack Rats needs to be so precise here with this Incarnation because it's likely the last one that he is going to get of the game. He needs to get through 2 Ice Blocks. So Wealthy Man should not be the target. You rely on him just not pressing an Ice Block if you do that. Maybe you overwhelm Chanimal through unending resolve.
There it is.
They're still trying to go after. Well, he's actually having to run away during his Incarnation. This is not what you want to see from Pack Rats, unless this was an Arcanic Pulsar Incarnation. We'll find out if it falls here shortly. It doesn't look to be the case. They're the ones dying during Incarnation. This is just so devastating for Never Lucky.
That one Chaos Bolt lands. Zach now getting low. It's difficult for the Holy Paladin to keep himself alive. Divine Favor tops himself off. We are at 54% dampening. How high will we get? Just such a defensive strategy coming in from Never Lucky. Consistently, constantly running away in this matchup, but eventually just Blizzard, Frozen Orb, they will inevitably kill you in this matchup. Wealthy Man just needs to make sure he's very careful in this matchup. I really feel like Chanimal has to be the one that's pushing in, getting aggressive, and he does. Infernals get dropped out, Mortal Coil, but once again, Never Lucky. They're running, they're hiding.
Valido finally pressed Stormkeeper. I think it's been the better part of 4.5 minutes. He pressed it and got a huge amount of damage. Wondering if he is feeling a little bit bad about not finding that sooner. His whole team now getting overwhelmed. Cubs even moving in, tossing out some extra damage that Zach simply doesn't have throughput to deal with. Frozen Orb is crashing in on one side. Chanimal's getting in on the fight, ready to end this at 60% dampening. Gets cloned up, doesn't want to throw, so he's going to sit through it. Zach gets Gladiator's Maledicts. He can't heal through that. He's waiting for it to fade. Weltman gets bursted. Temporal Shield. This could be a cross kill, potentially. Valido gets interrupted on his support, but all three members low. Cubsy's mana suddenly tapped out of nowhere with basically nothing left.
Look at it, Cubsy.
Although there's still 2 ice blocks, still an unending resolve. Packrats is 1 minute and 16 away from an incarnation. I think this is going to be a bit of a ballroom blitz, Ben. I actually think sparks are going to fly deeper into the match. Maybe we even end up seeing a 1 versus 1 if this pace keeps up.
Well, you know me, Sid, I love a good dance-off, and that's exactly what this is looking to be. At 63% dampening, things becoming more and more difficult. Icy Veins gets traded out by Wealthy Man, wants to get really aggressive. Chanimal relaying his Demonic Circle, and you can see this is where Wealthy Man is in trouble, though. Temporal Shield forced to blink away, and Valido and Packrats, they've been deflecting Wealthy Man, not allowing him to lay down that Blizzard and Frozen Orb as often as he'd really like. We look at mana, Zach still doing okay, but 66% dampening. I'm not sure it's mana he really needs to be concerned with.
All right, so let's see what they can get done here. 30 seconds away from that incarnation of Packrats. Cubsy, though, has regenerated mana, and with Innervate active, has a bunch of free healing at this moment in time, is likely to stabilize his team. Zach, on the other hand, has Avenging Wrath. Everything is going to come down to one big push. Valido activating that greater primal elemental with that fire elemental. He's going to be doing a ton of damage. Super Frogs need to be ready for it. Stormkeeper comes up soon, as well as Incarnation, but Packrats gets clotheslined by Chanimal's Mortal Coil. Packrats retreats away in bear form. Valido, though, gets stunned. He was left behind. Huge hit swings in. He gets Blessing of Protection down to the stun, but even still, Ursul's Vortex pulls him back into the fight. Triple Shadow Fury, triple Cataclysm. Chanimal looks to close. Avenging Wrath up just in the nick of time. Zach battles back. Packrats activates Incarnation, trying to toss out some damage and force the Super Frogs away. And even though they were getting overwhelmed, they are showing signs of life here at 71% dampening. I think we're almost going to break records in this match.
We definitely could. All 3 members of Super Frogs actually rotting down. The consistent pressure of Packrats right now is paying dividends for the team of Never Lucky. Are they going to be able to do it? This game was looking so hopeless for them, but now Chanimal, he's running and hiding. Wealthy Man's feeling scared, drops the Blizzard, still has to run away. Cubsy's mana is not looking good. Have Never Lucky really found the answer? Is it really Holy Paladin, Boom Kit, Elemental Shaman at 75% dampening? Big Chaos Bolt on Valido. Grounding Totem denies that damage. Never Lucky still holding on.
That is an angry Infernal. As both teams, all 6 members in trouble of dying at this point. 75% dampening. There's nothing left. Packrats so low on health, there's no mana in the tank for either side. Any member could die. Packrats falls first. Can Valido close any sort of counter pressure? No. Chaos Bolt closed out. And despite being low on health, any amount of health higher than 0 means you're still alive and you'll find victory. Super Frogs once again move to match point.
What was that? Super Frogs gonna be able to find a win. That was a strange game of Arena. That was a very strange game of Arena. As a fellow Packrat, I think we can throw out this composition, though. It doesn't seem to have a reliable win condition. Getting that lane to dampening, of course you can make pressure. Anybody can make pressure, and ultimately it is going to be Super Frogs who takes down the win.
Yep, Super Frogs, they have the pressure at 74% dampening. They're going to force out, you know, the grounding totems, and it's all about the positioning. Chanimal, he's going to go in on one side, and of course, Wealthyman is going to go in on the other side. Wealthyman is going to channel out Blizzards on the opposite side here from Chanimal. Chanimal is going to channel out Cataclysms, Chaos Bolts, and whenever they see that they have an opportunity to go for one of these big hitting spells, they're going to get it off, and eventually they're going to take somebody down. In this case, Packrats, of course, is going to be that target.
I just think they had a better chance with the composition that they were playing in the first game. We're gonna get to talk about that more when we return. We're gonna take a few seconds here to get ready. This series may be ending before we even blink. If you haven't been playing in a little while, as you can see, you can jump into the action this weekend. We would love to see you back, but I'm not sure if we would love to see you play the composition that we just saw. It was a little bit of an oddity. It caught us off guard. The entire time we were trying to figure out what the win condition was, and I want to unpack it just a little bit more before we jump into the next series. When we got a little bit caught off guard with the Retribution Paladin and the Hunter, all of a sudden we were saying, okay, okay, there's something there. There was definitely something there. This last one, does it have the potential in this series? Were we maybe wrong to jump the gun on it? Or is this a composition that we don't see a place for in this series?
I don't like Paladins in general being in Tolderon Arena. I think, you know, they should stay away from the sands and, you know, stick to the small maps, stick to the all-ins. That's what they're good at. So that's where I want to see them. Now, what I would have liked to see if they're going to bring something out. Okay, so that's not it either. I was going to say a small map and go back to the Windwalker DK Mistweaver. That would be nice. Now,
they're going to kill Cubsy or die trying.
Yeah.
Well, they're picking the Shaman because of the purge buffs, of course, but I just don't see it. I feel like Method Orange would have picked this. I feel like Method Orange wanted to pick what Neverlucky's picking when they're playing the Mistweaver healer. I think Colo and the rest of Shaman is going to be the weak link.
You used that before.
You used it yesterday, but we're not gonna call it.
Hey, he was telling me about it. We lived together, and he was telling me about it. He's like, I'm going to use that this weekend.
Dude, wait, literally calling out his own co-caster, Supati's the one who every time Ruins of Lordaeron for the past 3 years has been the last map in the series.
And I'm
has made the
setting him
same
up,
joke,
That's
and we
trademark,
prop
though.
him up. It is a terrible joke. It is a terrible joke, and we've never called you out on it. Zico makes one joke twice,
It's a
and you
trademark.
roast him.
No,
You
it's
roast
a
him.
It's a trademark.
No, I'm Supati's. I just
Okay.
can't see him from here.
Okay.
All right, man. All right. Well, Neverlucky, they are going to Colo ultimately, whether or not in this particular matchup, if the Shaman is the weak link, it's a good one, Zico. I'm going to use.
I'm not saying it's not a
I'm
good
going to
one.
use it on Spring Finals.
Is that okay? This is now yours. Did you just throw a pen at me, Rich
No.
W. Campbell?
No, that was the camera guy.
Go
And
to your room.
no matter. No, this is falling apart. First we see the Boomkin and Ellie, and now everything's falling apart on the desk as well. No matter what, though, Colo is strong on this healer. He is strong on this healer. Whether or not it is the right answer, they're going to try to switch things up, and I think a lot of this is going to go back to that first game. It was a little while ago, but in that first game, Neverlucky plays their main composition, and they aren't able to find that win. They play it close. I would have liked to see more of it, but Super Frogs have the right answer here, and that's just where we're at. If you're just tuning in, Neverlucky, if they can manage to get the reverse sweep here, they find themselves in a very good place to make it to land. If they fall here, if they're sent home on this potentially final game of the day, Jamili is just going to have a fantastic Sunday with the team of Mew Mew Kitty Cats.
Yeah, and Jamili is gonna...
Not that fantastic.
Well, it's not that fantastic. If Jamili loses his first game against the boys in the upper bracket, and then he faces Super Frogs in the rematch, and he doesn't win there, that's a tiebreaker between him and Neverlucky.
Well, here's the thing with the Super Frog. So, I mean, one of those matchups they've already won, right? So that's the reason why I think you assume that maybe it is still a good weekend. And the other way, Jamili and Colo get to play each other. We know that they have a lot of chemistry in the arena. They would definitely like to go toe-to-toe. So no matter what, we're getting some good matchups. The question is, who is that fourth team going to be who makes the jump, who makes it to the first and biggest tournament that's going to be played on land this year? Neverlucky needs to regain their footing. Otherwise, the Super Frogs are going to be leaping straight to Sunday.
Colo pioneered the let's run at the healer and not care about anything else in the game strategy, and I think that's what he's trying to bank victory on here. It's definitely maybe frustration on the part of Neverlucky as well. They do not want to be stalled out anymore by the Super Frogs. I'm just curious as to when in the fight they will decide to go for this aggressive strategy. Will they try and stall and wait similarly to Method Orange, or will they just get into the deep end as soon as possible?
Well, Zach's going to be marching forward with Valido. It looks like Neverlucky, they want to get aggressive early on. Who is the main target? How many purges are we going to be seeing out of Colo? Like you said, Method Synergy, Mez, Trill, and Colo, they sort of pioneered that all-in strategy, just offensive purge after offensive purge. Unfortunately, a Seduce onto Colo is going to be broken by a Blizzard into a full Polymorph, though. Zach could be in some trouble. They're looking to run down Wealthy Man in this situation. He deflects early on with Temporal Shield, but Zach already trading out his Touch of Karma, wants to get hyper-aggressive.
Surprising that they're actually going after Wealthy Man. Maybe Cubsy preparing for himself to be the target and trying to catch him off guard by going after Wealthy Man instead. Here on Dalaran Sewers, Wealthy Man is dealing with the pressure quite effectively, keeping Zach on the ropes as well. There is a counterspell available that Colo needs to try and fake out. He's now bashed. Zach is in trouble and on the run, ducking for cover. Multiple Gladiators Maledicts absorbing a ton of heals. Colo reconnects. spelling off that healing absorption, looking to fake cast a counterspell on this healing wave. Colo gets into it. He fake casts the counterspell. Well done on Colo's part. He can now stabilize the team quite easily.
Yeah, definitely, without that interrupt out of the way, Colo should be able to top off his team, but all three members eating a blizzard, eating a frozen orb right now as they rot down just a little bit. Cubsy position very far away. I think that's likely where he wants to be in this matchup. Colo actually taking quite a bit of damage right now. A little bit of burst pressure. What are Chanimals and Wealthy Man going to be able to do? So, like you said, Wealthy Man so far has been dealing with the pressure quite well. They were looking for an all-in onto Wealthy Man, but his ability to kite in this matchup, back up from Chanimal, Cubsy healing him up. Super Frogs has so far been able to deflect the early attacks.
All right, let's see if Never Lucky can maintain for an all-in kill with the Purge strategy. It's the only reason we would see Colo switch in on the Restoration Shaman, banking on his main healing specialization that he's played for quite a long time. Perhaps the main is enough to overwhelm the Super Frogs. First ice block forced. There is signs of life for Never Lucky in the lower bracket. If they manage to pull this off, likely we see them go head-to-head with the Mew Mew Kitty Cats tomorrow in the lower bracket. I shouldn't count the Mew Mew Kitty Cats out, but based on history, you would expect that result. So if Never Lucky can somehow crawl back in this, they need to reverse sweep 3 in a row, keep their qualification dreams alive. But this is the best match so far in terms of pressure we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Colo's mana is not doing too great right now. Another one of those seduces from Chanimal into a full polymorph. Chanimal lining up a big Chaos Bolt. Going to be landing on a Zac. That trades out for Anti-Magic Zone and the Touch of Karma of Zac in that particular situation. So Zac not really working with too many defensives right now. Zac getting low, has to use the Diffuse Magic as well. Another Chaos Bolt lands. Zac, what is he going to do? Needs to be able to get away. Colo forced to use his Spirit Link Totem. And things are falling apart for Never Lucky.
This is starting to look grim for Colo here. It's on match point, and if they lose here, everything rides on the Mew Mew Kitty Cats losing their 2 series tomorrow. And if they don't, then they will be the 4th team from North America. In the meantime, though, as things are falling apart, they get the second ice block. Cubsy's almost tapped on mana, and suddenly it's anyone's match here in what could be the final seconds. Colo has 3 members low on health, and he's got Ascendance. He could stabilize the team if he's able to get casted heals off, going for a Healing Rain, allowing Velita to stabilize in midfield with Death Strike, and manages to pull together a recovery. Infernals have landed. Colo gets seduced. Double Shadow Fury. Great setup by Chanimal. He's ready to close this out, but Velito denies the kill. Zac gets swapped too. He overextends. He leaves Colo behind. Gets Ursula's Vortex back into line of sight. Ray of Frost gets Winchered in the nick of time by Colo. Zac able to wrap around the corner, start to stabilize. Colo trinkets out of Polymorph to stay up. Maybe a bit of a precautionary Gliders Medallion might not have been necessary. Cubsy gets crowd controlled, paralysis into Cap Totem, but Velito is low on health. Pressure still maintains for both teams.
This Windwalker Deathlink composition isn't looking too bad. Wealthy Man doesn't have another ice block for quite some time. Zac can make an offensive trade with his Touch of Karma if he really needs to. And that might be the added bit of damage that they need. I really want to see it after this Iron Bark from Cubsy. Unfortunately, Zac just doesn't have enough time. Looking to get really aggressive. There's the Asphyxiate stun. Full stun onto Wealthy Man as well. Big pressure here from Never Lucky, but Wealthy Man has been dealing with the pressure. He has a Temporal Shield. He's doing a good job kiting. Colo getting in a position. Zac once again getting swatted away by Wealthy Man and Chanimal, forcing him to play a little bit defensive here. Colo really doesn't have too much left in terms of defensive cooldowns. He trades out his Ascendants, looking to empower his heals, and ends up topping off Zac, with Chanimal still ripping in.
Chanimal is going to be the X factor if Wealthy Man is the target. He can be the playmaker. He can just close this series out and advance and likely secure Mew Mew Kitty Cat's spot towards the finals. Zac gets bursted. Huge damage to follow that up. Wealthy Man gets bursted back in a huge comeback. Tons of damage. He's getting purged out. Wealthy Man will fall. Colo stays in it, but needs to battle it back 2 more games in a row.
You cannot count out Never Lucky here. If we do see them fall, the day becomes simple tomorrow. Win 1 if you're Mew Mew Kitty Cats, and you're going straight to the spring final. Never Lucky does not want to see that come to pass. They want to keep on trucking. How are they going to be able to do it back to back, though? Because when we do look at the sheer fact, you didn't even like this pick from them. Now that you saw the Shaman, how do you feel?
Well, I'm still not a terribly big fan of the Shaman, but they did essentially what I wanted to see from them. They executed on Windwalker DK strategy on the Mage on a small map. That's what I wanted to see from them in the first place. That's why it was so shocking to see them go to that large map in the previous game. So they managed to hold on here, but now there's more large maps. We're gonna probably go to Ashamane's Fall. What are they gonna do there? Are they gonna lock in the Shaman? Are they going to lock in another wizard comp of their own? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you think there's a world where they go back to the Moon Canelli? Do you think that there's a world?
Absolutely not.
I do.
I think that there's a world. I think that there's a pretty realistic timeline where that's what happens.
I think they rogue mage and kill them in 3 minutes.
Oh,
or
yeah.
less.
It's not their blind pick. Yeah, never.
Oh, yeah, true.
I think if that matchup plays out again, I could see them winning at 76% dampening with RNG, just big burst.
I think it's a coin flip and 76% dampening. That was kind of that was pretty much what I was trying to get at when we first saw the comp. Sometimes with a lot of the dampening strategies, when you see a team just playing to live and you actually get to a certain point in critical mass, it's like, who happens to bump into someone first, that person's going to fall down, right? Like, it's just so overwhelming, the pressure that you get to, especially in that 70-plus area. That the comp reliably makes it to dampening, right? That's the reason why I can play for that strat in the first place. On the blind, though, you think Rogue Mage just tears it apart?
Well, I think it's likely Super Frogs goes to Ashamain Fall. That way, I think if they go to a small map, Windwalker Death Knight isn't looking too bad. They can just blind locked in. Never Lucky will be pretty confident with that. But on the bigger map, it becomes a lot more difficult because then all of a sudden there's the threat of the Warlock and the Frost Mage that you have to deal with on that larger map. So that'll sort of keep Never Lucky guessing. So if I was right now the Super Frogs, I would definitely 100% be locking in Ashamain's Fall. And for Never Lucky, I don't know what their best answer is. If they lock in the Wizard Cleave with the Moonkin Elemental Shaman, I think they'll just get destroyed by Rogue Mage really, really quickly. I feel like they have no choice but to try to emulate what happened in game number 1, because it was close. Even when they go against the Destruction Warlock Frost Mage, I still think they have a chance.
I agree with that. Yeah, that was actually basically the thing I wanted to talk to Zico about right now, because we both agreed on that. I feel like if we saw that composition just over and over and over again, there's maybe a 40% chance that they win the series. It's a strong composition. It's their best composition. We're going to see Colo on the Shaman again. Why do you think we keep seeing him on the Shaman? We already talked about the fact that we did see it delivered in some capacities. Why do we see it here even on Ashmains?
Well, it's just a purge mana cost reduction. They get more offense with the Shaman. They can go in and spam purge that mage and really try to get those ice blocks out. But at the same time, the Shaman is not going to be as mobile as Mistweaver is going to be on this map, and in a scenario where you're not going to be allowed to drink, the Mistweaver is also going to be more mana efficient, and I just like the Mistweaver more overall, you know. We said it earlier, you know, the Shaman is the weak link.
If we do have the upset, though, on Ashmain's Fall, what's the final map that we actually do see Super Frogs go to, right? Like, this is a big one for Never Lucky, because the other maps aren't going to be as ideal as Ashmain's Fall is right now. Super Frogs have everything in their favor in this game. Maybe it dwindles a little bit just based off of where we are in the map pool for Never Lucky if they get to a Game 5. Just looking at the silver linings here, Super T's.
Yeah, I think Mugambala, maybe Runes of Lordaeron. Tigers would be the safest.
Tigers,
sure.
True.
But on Ashmain's Fall, that was one of the most difficult battles for Never Lucky. It gets even harder here on this setting, being Ashmain's Fall. So if Never Lucky had managed to pull away Tolvaron with their Moonkin Elemental, which could have came down to a couple of different global cooldowns, everyone was low at the end of the game. Literally, the difference of casting not a Healing Surge and a Lava Burst instead and just trade your own life might have changed the outcome of that game. So it's a bit unfortunate and a bit unlucky for Never Lucky in that match, but they've got one opportunity here. Colo looks solid on the Shaman, even though we haven't seen him in a long time on it, so I'm curious to see how it plays out.
I like the trade your own life strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
it could work.
look at how coming from somebody who plays Moonkin too, it makes a lot of sense. when you're in that situation as a Moonkin and you're not getting any pressure off the Incarn at all. Like we see how many Incarns we see an Incarn.
He died during his own.
We see an Incarn at 50%, an Incarn at 75% dampening, and they can't get any pressure going. Like no favorable trades.
Feels Moonkin, man.
But also the Warlock didn't even need to try to be like, okay, I'm gonna get a more favorable trade and actually just drop an Infernal or drop it. They just waited out. That was the biggest problem for me, and that wasn't how Packrats was playing necessarily. I actually think it does come more down to what we were seeing from the Shaman, holding on to a lot of those Stormkeepers, being a little bit greedy, trying to wait for the exact moment, not doing some of the stuff that we've seen other players do. I'm thinking about Swapsy. The way Swapsy pulls damage is incredibly smart, but he's still creating pressure, and then the positioning also adds to that. Never Lucky, they get intimate with the pillar, but that's about all that they do the entirety of the game. They stay right there, and they never stray away from home. Now, we're going to see them on a composition that's much more comfortable for them. Colo is going to be able to get a little bit aggressive, and maybe they can force some mistakes from Super Frogs, extend this to a Game 5, and keep on trucking, try to keep their fate in their own hands, and make their way to the first LAN of the year, the Spring Finals. And most likely we will not see that Moonkin Elemental Shaman in game number 5.
Probably not. So on Dalaran Sewers, when this matchup played out, we saw Zach get low multiple times in the matchup, and he was constantly having to run away, retreat. And I think on a larger map like this, when he is forced to run away, that allows Super Frogs massive time to recover, where on Dalaran Sewers, Zach can easily just get back to his target with one roll, one flying serpent kick. And I think that's one of the major advantages now Super Frogs has, is if they can force Zach and Valido in a defensive position, they just have so much more room to work with, to kite, to get away, buy themselves more time to rotate through Iron Bark and Temporal Shield, because Never Lucky, they have to be able to stay in the fight long enough to get through those two major defensives if they want to start pulling ice blocks, and it's just way more difficult to do on a large map like Ashman's.
Yeah, it looked pretty hard on the last one as well, right? I think that's something that you do go back to. Wealthy Man seemed like he was going to be able to hold on to blocks pretty much the entirety of that, but the pressure does come in. How much of that do you feel like comes from Colo getting aggressive, though? Completely honest, because we keep talking about going back to the Monk. How much of the pressure is off the back of Colo?
Well, Colo definitely assists with the pressure, but I don't think that it assists as much as the map. I think the map is the big factor, and when the map is so large, I think the amount that Colo assists isn't necessarily going to be enough to get those cooldowns out. And I think, like we mentioned, for the various reasons earlier, the Monk is just going to be a more solid pick overall for them. In game number 1, on a large map, it didn't look too bad. I think on a map like Asherman's Fall, it's going to look pretty dire, Wolf.
Sometimes you shoot and sometimes you miss.
You miss every shot you don't take.
That's true.
Wait, was it that bad?
Oh, it was awful.
Okay, wait, let me try again.
No.
You think about it for a little while.
Think of the people at home.
You don't want a wolf in a pack of rats.
Well, Colo's more like a wolf in sheep's clothing when Wealthy Man's in the arena. No?
That's interesting. That was an interesting one. Because he's polymorphed.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. It's not even funny.
It's not funny, but it's interesting.
Hey, man, some of the greats aren't funny, but they make you think. I'm a big Russian literature fan myself.
If I can make Rich Campbell think, I've made my day. Wow. I'm just kidding.
I think that was shots fired.
I'm just kidding, Rich.
Super Frogs looking to close this one out. Never Lucky has tried a plethora of compositions there. They've made us all think. And they have definitely made us all believe. The question is, can they get 2 wins in a row? Or is it going to be all up to Jamili and his squad, whether or not they make it to LAN?
Never Lucky stay alive in the lower bracket, but they have to win 2 games in a row. And Super Frogs can counter-comp and counter-map their opponents as well. So I'm curious if Never Lucky can overcome that overwhelming disadvantage. Wealthy Man getting crushed in the earlier stages of this fight here on Ashman's Fall. Cubsy struggling to heal, finally starting to recover with the Iron Bark's defense activated. But even still, Never Lucky. Their damage looks pretty good if they can stay on target. Chanimals, once again, is going to be the playmaker of the team, and I am curious to see what he can get done aggressively left open for this long.
Yeah, definitely. Wealthy Man still getting low, though. This could be the first ice block, and like we saw on Dalaran Sewers, he was such a prime target. Wealthy Man getting grip back, catching a huge heal. Finally, Colo actually taking a little bit of pressure as well. Yeah, all 6 members are definitely getting bursted down right now. You can see Valito routing down Zach as well. Colo caught in midfield. This is not the position you want to be in. Colo with no trinket in a full bash. He gets deleted, erased from the arena by Chanimal Chaos Bolt. And unfortunately for Never Lucky, they're going to be eliminated from this tournament. And now their fate is out of their hands.
I guess you could say Colo Shaman was the weak link. Super Frog's going to be able to take this series, and they're going to be able to make it to Sunday. One of the toughest opponents that you could have in NA. How was that quick kill able to be delivered?
You didn't have to send this. No, I'm sorry. Anti-Magic Zone came in kind of late. Colo had his Astral Shift activated, but it faded. Chanimal, of course, with that Dark Soul, able to line up a big, beefy bolt. You're going to see it soon. And Colo, a little bit of an underreaction there for sure. Actually, the anti-magic... Wait.
He died through it?
Yeah, he died through it. Look at this damage. This is actually insane.
Damn.
Wow.
Dang.
Oh, what a cheeky spicer that bolt was.
I was sure that Anti-Magic Zone was a bit late there, but no, that was on point. Chanimal just
perfect reaction, honestly. Well played by Colo and Never Lucky. I guess it's true. Sometimes you're just never lucky. That was the biggest crit I've ever seen from just tearing through defensive cooldowns. It's literally called anti-magic. That's magic. That's a bomb buster going through that defensive cooldown, and that's going to be enough to delete them from the tournament.